Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
Welcome to the Catholic Mama, where you'll learn how to deepen and defend your faith, find comfort as we share the vocation of parenthood, and learn how to raise your children confidently Catholic. I'm your host, Christine Mooney-Flynn. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to the Catholic Mama. I'm your host, Christine Mooney-Flynn. Thank you for joining us today. And I say us because we have a guest. I have a guest. It's Jeannie Ewing. Hello, Jeannie.
Hi, Christine.
So Jeannie is a spirituality writer. She was on the podcast a couple months back. I think it was August maybe? Or July.
Yeah, it was like the summer.
It was the summer. I just remember I was sweating in my house because I don't have central air. And I had to turn the fans off so that it wouldn't catch on the computer.
Right.
But Jeannie, thank you for coming on. And I know we talked about doing this again, and we've actually been able to make this happen.
Yeah, I appreciate the invite. It's great to talk to you again.
Yeah, I think it's funny too because we were swapping. I mean, we were in Wisconsin at the same time, and then you were in Wisconsin, and then you left, and then I went to Wisconsin.
Yeah, right. Right.
So you were there for two different reasons. One of those reasons, though, I think before was to record Amazing Mercy, right?
Yes, that was in the summer. Mm-hmm.
The summer. Okay, so that must be when we last talked because it was right before that.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Well, good old Wisconsin. You know, John Steinbeck said that it was the most beautiful state.
I haven't seen most of the state, but the part that I have seen, some parts of it look a lot like the Midwest where I live in Indiana, to me. But yeah, I love the parts that are like by the water, by the lake, and because we don't live by anything that's like that. No mountains, no water, no beach. It's kind of like geez, and that's it. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that's a subjective thing. Like, I think there's something beautiful about every state. Anywhere you go, there's something you can find that's, I guess, a snippet of, it's a reflection of God, His glory and His love for us and His heart. So like my husband, I'm kind of probably totally getting off subject. My husband's from the Southwest. So he grew up in Colorado, but he lived in New Mexico when I met him. And I remember I lived there briefly after we were married before he got a job in Indiana, which is where I'm from. And I missed the green of the Midwest, like the green grass and the deciduous trees. But at the same time, like I had never before seen a desert sunset. Like I had seen over the Sangre de Cristo mountains, where we lived in the middle of the mountains. There's a canyon in the backyard of our condo. And so there's just a different part of beauty that I think we can find wherever we go.
Yeah. It kind of shows how varied everything is when you look at how different every single person is across the world, and God loves us all. And He's made all the natural stuff so varied and different too. It just shows how interesting He is.
Yeah, absolutely.
I grew up in this. No, that's not true. Most of my life I've lived on the East Coast. I lived outside of San Diego for a short time when I was a kid, or not for a short time, 4 years as a kid. And then I went back for a short time after college to outside San Diego. And at the time I worked at a coffee shop with a girl who was from Arkansas, and she was homesick and I was homesick. And the two of us just talked about Southern thunderstorms and the change of seasons. But there was something really beautiful about hearing coyotes howl and smelling sagebrush, and we had a small wildfire when we were there, and even that was, because it was small and was not actually that harmful to anything, was very cool and beautiful, and the way it smelled. And I mean, maybe not the smog, which happened, but I'm still glad that I'm back in seasons. Although Pennsylvania, where I live outside of Philadelphia, is beautiful.
It is.
I agree. It looks like you've gone, I don't know, it's like Brigadoon.
Right. Yeah, right. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Unfortunately, most of the houses that look like that are old money, and I will never get my hands on them, but
sure,
at least it's nice to drive by them.
Sure.
It gets very crowded the closer you get to Philly. And actually, wait a second, weren't you in Philly recently?
I was not. You're probably thinking of Anna, the recording artist that I made the CD with. She goes to Pennsylvania quite a bit.
Oh, you weren't here I thought there was the Catholic Women's Conference or something outside of Philly.
I haven't been to Philadelphia in years.
Maybe I'm thinking of something. Okay. That was you. Who knows? I would blame it on motherhood, but then you would call me out on that because you do have more kids than I do.
Yeah. So you know what? Baby brain's legit. And so it's okay. I think it lingers for years. It's all good. We're
My mom did say it comes back. Your brain does come back.
Eventually.
I don't know when that's going to be.
Who knows?
I don't know. It's actually, so when's your due date? Or due-ish date?
The end of January.
Okay. You're getting close.
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready to be a mom of 4?
No, but I will. I guess I'll have to be, right? It's our first boy, so
it's exciting.
It is exciting.
I had my brother. I have an older brother. Pat's the oldest. My husband. So I'm used to the idea of having a boy around or having an older boy. So I was actually pretty happy that we had the boy first. Interesting. And now to see him, because he's a 5, and now to see him like really interacting and being protective of the youngest. Is really
sweet. Absolutely.
He's owning the big brother status, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I don't know unless you're going to plan anymore. This might be the younger brother forever.
I don't know. I'm 38 when I have him, so I'm getting older.
Wow. My grandmother had 10 kids, one of them, and she was giving birth every other year from the ages of 24 to 42.
I don't think I want to do that, but it's all up to God. It's in his hands. So.
I know. You know what? So I have a feeling that I'm probably going to wind up with more kids because we said we were done with 3. We wanted more than 3. And then we got to 3 and I was like, oh man, that last pregnancy it was hard. I remember my kids asked me to play with them and I said, I just can't.
Yeah, I get it. No, I get it.
Yeah. So, but now I've read the catechism. And me just saying I want my body to myself is not a good enough reason not to have.
I know. I understand. It's definitely a huge sacrifice. My spiritual director actually wrote in a book, pregnancy means creating space for another. And she used that as a spiritual metaphor, but of course we take it literally. And I've pondered that a lot because, we're in Advent right now. And, I just think about how beautiful that is. Jesus said, this is my body given up for you. That's what we do as moms. And it is a huge sacrifice when you're open to life because I've never had, like with our first 3 kids, nobody said anything negative to us. They were all congratulatory and really sweet and kind. And then with this 4th one, he's going to be 20 months younger than our youngest. And people are just weird and rude. And I mean, it comes from family and friends and neighbors and other Catholics. I mean, they say the strangest things like, oh, your poor child, or, oh, you're pregnant again. I'm so sorry to hear that. Or, I mean, it's like, it just, I guess, reinforces to me this societal mindset that 3 kids is pretty much the max that people think you should ever have. And when people have asked me, is this planned? It's like, it was God's plan, right? I mean, we were open to life and he blessed us with another child. Was it exactly the timing that we wanted? No, but he knows exactly the moment when every human life is supposed to be brought into this world. And I don't know, my experience has just been, it's been very different. This pregnancy. It's been really almost bittersweet, I would say. And that's the bitter part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Pat and I were talking about this because once we realized, every Friday I do like this mini catechism, like rundown of a different topic. And I just did contraception. So I actually had to read the catechism really closely before I went into this episode. And I was like, oh, wow, we've been going about this a little bit wrong. So my husband and I have been talking about this and it's interesting because now, we have 3 kids. You have the 4th, then you've crossed the line of what is acceptable.
Right.
So this will be interesting because I'm sure already I was getting comments of, I have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old, pretty closely spaced. And already I was getting comments about that. Was it planned? And I was kind of chuckle like planned. They were all surprises.
Sure.
Actually, one time with my 3rd, the two older ones were, young. One, I don't even know, 3 and not even 3. I don't even know, whatever it was. Or I guess 3 and 1. And they were running around screaming, playing. The dog is like barking at the door. I wanted a glass of wine.
Yes.
And I poured the wine, but I was like, you know what? I have a funny feeling. I'm craving a bagel, and I don't particularly like bagels.
You were pregnant.
I was, yeah. So I poured the wine, and then I went and took a pregnancy test just before I drank it. And I hear like the house is just going crazy, and it becomes positive in 10 seconds. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So I'm sure, I mean, it's just planned. It's funny. It's God's plan. It's planned by God.
Yeah. Well, and fertility, I mean, gosh, it's such a delicate topic because my husband and I actually experienced infertility with the first 3 of our children. They were very, very much planned, but we wanted them sooner than when they came. And this baby, so our first son, Joseph, he was a huge surprise because I've always had a struggle with infertility. So I wasn't really like charting really well because I'm like, whatever. And I was like, it's not possible. How can this be? Like, I've always had to have like HCG shots and go to my Creighton doctor. And, for months and months and months and sometimes years, it's taken me to get pregnant. So it's interesting because it doesn't matter, I think, if you experience infertility, miscarriage, infant loss, or if you are so fertile that you're like, dude, I don't even have to, I just look at my husband and there's a cross to that. It's hard no matter what. There was one of my friends in the neighborhood where we used to live before we moved back to my hometown a couple of years ago. And she came to my door crying one day. I think she had come to bring us a meal after one of Sarah's surgeries. So Sarah's our middle daughter with a rare disease. And she's like, can you please pray for me? I'm pregnant with our 5th and I'm just not ready. And I said to her, I'm like, yeah, I will. But can you pray for us? Because we've been trying to have another baby for a long time. So we kind of had this moment where she realized like that was her cross and this was mine. That's at the time. And so she said, I wish I could give you some of my fertility. That's what she said to me. So, it's just a very, very multifaceted, theological, experiential, philosophical kind of issue when it comes to the gift of our fertility and yet the cross of our fertility. So
that's great. I needed to hear that. I wasn't, looking at my 3rd, she's at almost a year and a half. And that's my favorite time so far with kids, that they're really sweet. And I mean, they're kind of maddening because you can't explain anything yet to them. They don't reason that well. But they're not toddlers fully yet where they're throwing tantrums or anything. So it's just a really sweet age. And I was like, man, I don't think I'm done yet. But crossing over, I had planned to be done by this age. I was in the spring, I'll be 34. So I was like, okay, that's good. Because then you start getting the warnings from doctors or whatever.
I know. You'll be able to geriatric when you're 35.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's true. It's true.
Geriatric. My goodness. I mean, if you don't go through menopause typically until your 40s, that's interesting. Yeah. I
think it's just their medical, I guess, cutoff or whatever definition. I don't know.
But way to make a lady feel special.
Mm-hmm.
Man, well, I'm excited for you, and I'm excited that you get to be a boy mom. So
yeah, me too. It'll be very new.
Yeah, they're loud typically, but who knows? I think girls are loud too.
Yeah. They're different. Boys and girls are very different. I have friends who have only boys. And I've been around them since birth, and I've talked to talked to my friends, and they're different. Girls are very catty. I mean, I don't know your experience, but I find having 3 girls, they're drama, they're moody, they're catty, they're emotionally like all over the place and really, really emotionally high maintenance. Our girls are, at least. And so, from my friends that have boys, they're like, oh yeah, boys are really active and they duke it out, but they don't have quite the same level of drama. I'm thinking, hopefully God will give us a reprieve here with this son.
I hope so. My son is actually very dramatic.
He's the oldest, right?
Yeah, but he's the oldest. So it's hard to say. Like if we had another boy, who knows, he could be really laid back and just want to beat somebody up. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe it changes when you have multiples of the same gender. I don't know, because the dynamic would change.
Yeah, I don't know. My mom's one of 5 girls. They only had girls. And then 2 houses down was a house of 5 boys. And actually one of the boys married my aunt.
Okay.
So 5 boys, 5 girls. The boys in that house I know were definitely more physical. But and in my mom's house, it was a lot of slapping and scratching and screaming.
Yeah, right.
We fight differently. You know what? Despite what society will tell us today, boys and girls are different.
Yes, they are.
They are not the same.
Their brains are even structured. I mean, our brains are different.
But no. Anybody can be whatever they want. Stop that, Jeannie.
It's crazy. I know. It's crazy.
Yeah, you mentioned something a little while back, and I wanted to ask because I hear this occasionally, and I don't know. How does one go about getting a spiritual director? Where do you find that person?
That's a good question. So, it depends on what you're looking for. Some people, they want a priest as a spiritual director so that they can have their spiritual director as their confessor also. Priests are very difficult to find in terms of, if you have like maybe an ordered priest, that might be a little bit easier. That's not been my experience. I was fortunate to have our first pastor when my husband and I were married. So the first parish we belonged to, he was my spiritual director for about 2 years. And that was wonderful because I went to him every month. And every time I went to spiritual direction, I always went to confession too. So that is the benefit of that. I now go to a lay spiritual director. She lives in Oregon. Her name's Mary Sharon Moore. She does parish missions and retreats, and she's a writer. And she actually did a parish mission at our old parish. And that's how I first was acquainted with her work and her spirituality. And then I found out that she has like an actual certification and master's degree in pastoral counseling. And so I've just had her for like 3 years. We talk on the phone, and she is very, very receptive to where I am spiritually. And she also challenges me in a very gentle way. So, I guess I would just say if someone's open to a lay spiritual director, you can find them online. You can find them in your diocese. I know that I initially contacted one of the offices in our diocese when I was looking for a spiritual director, and they had like a few recommendations in the area. So it just kind of depends on what you're looking for. If you're okay with long distance, like I'm fine with that. If you're okay with someone who's not a religious, then you probably would have options and you can find someone more quickly. If you prefer face-to-face and you want a priest and you want that person to be your confessor, it's going to take longer and it's going to be a little harder to find.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, there's been times, I've never even thought or knew about this sort of thing. But there's been times I'm like, man, I wish I had somebody else to talk to about this.
Absolutely. It's so important. I think truly as we advance in our spiritual lives, we just need someone who gets that part of us. Even if we're like, I'm a pretty open person and I talk about a lot of aspects of my life with my close family and friends, and of course my husband. But, there's just something that a spiritual director understands about you because you have that relationship. It's almost like a counselor, but yet on a deeper level.
Sure.
I don't know how else to explain it.
No, that's good. That's good advice. I'll just put that on another thing on my to-do list, but that's a really important one. So that people do that, start looking for one of those. I wish, and he is so, I know he must be so busy and everybody loves him. But it was this old priest at our church who got reassigned, a couple months ago, and they did their reassignments, and he's not that far away, and it's so sad to see him go. But he always gave me the best advice and confession, and he really made me rethink things. And I don't know, I wish I could get him, but I think everybody wants him to be their spiritual director.
You can always ask. There's nothing wrong with finding out.
God, he's so good. He was actually one of the priests. He was the priest that made my husband rethink Catholicism. And then because he had such a reverence for the Eucharist that I had never seen before, and neither had my husband. So even when I saw him, and his homilies were amazing, like he's really special. And,
gifted, very gifted.
Very, very gifted. And My husband's like, will you come to weekday mass with me one day? And I was like, oh, this is when I was still like anti-Catholic a year ago. I'm like, yeah, I'll go. And it was just hearing, I was like, I had a deeper appreciation or openness to Catholicism. So he really did a number on my body, or my mind, which was great. I needed it.
Yeah.
Ever since then, I was like always excited when I walked into the confessional and he was there. Yes. I have a priest now, though. He tells me to go have a glass of wine.
I love it, though.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I like what you're throwing down. It's Hail Marys and wine. I'm like, okay.
That's right. What can be better when you're a mom of young kids? It
has me say prayers for young married couples and for mothers and have wine. I'm like, yeah, all right, I'm there. This is easy. Maybe I need more deeper penance than that, but I'll take it. So I do want to spend a little bit of time, of course, talking about your two latest projects. Actually, For Those Who Grieve just came in the mail for me. I'm excited to dig in.
Great. I didn't realize you got it. That's awesome.
I did get it. It came in the mail, and it actually came in the mail just today, so I really haven't had a chance to look through it yet. We were celebrating St. Lucy's feast day today, and then we've had car trouble. And as I was like, oh, this is great. We finished dinner early. I was like, this is great. I'm going to start reading this a little bit before our talk. And then my son spilled, there was a beer next to me and he knocked it over and spilled it all over me and the table. And then as I was getting up to clean everything, I dropped a dish and it's shattered everywhere.
Oh, yes. I hear you.
I was like, I didn't think I'm going to have time to read this right now.
Yes, I know what you mean. That's totally life.
But I'm excited to read it once.
Yeah, I just got my copies yesterday. So I'm excited about this one because it's I think going to be digestible for people who their grief is really raw and new, and they maybe feel very overwhelmed and very confused or frustrated by the complexity of their emotions. And so this is a very short devotional that I think people will be able to kind of absorb better than like From Grief to Grace.
Yeah, it's a perfect little size to hold in your hand.
It is. You can put it in your pocket. You can put it in your purse.
Yeah.
Stick it in your car. It's perfect. So I'm really happy that this came to fruition this year because I think that, From Grief to Grace is a great book to offer people who are in a place where they're really ready to spiritually mature through their grief journey. But it's a lot heavier and more intense to get through that one. And it's a thicker book. It's more meditative. And this one is I think something that people can just pick up when they need a really refreshing word of encouragement. They need to feel like they're not alone, like someone's with them and accompanying them. That's how I wrote it, at least with that intention to really reach people, whoever was reading it, so that they know, hey, I'm not alone. There's somebody else out there who kind of gets it. So, I'm really happy about that I can offer both of those as options to people.
That's great. No, actually, I'm not familiar with this. It says Our Sunday's Visitor. What is that?
Oh, Our Sunday Visitor is like the largest Catholic publishing company, I think.
Oh, really?
I don't know if it's in the country or in the world, but they are actually in our diocese too. I live about 45 minutes away from the publishing house. So.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah. Well, I'm a newer Catholic, so of course I wouldn't know that.
Yeah, sure. Of course. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, I'm excited to look through that. Thankfully, I am not in a place of grief at the moment, but we have so many books in the house, and I like the idea of having just an arsenal, no matter what's happening in my life, that I have something to go to.
Sure.
And then you had something come out earlier this year with Anna Nunzo, right?
Nuzzo.
Nuzzo. Sorry. Oh, you know what? I'm pretending there's an extra N in her name. Can you tell me a little bit about that Amazing Mercy?
So I met Anna at the Catholic Marketing Conference 2.5 years ago when it was near Chicago. She lives pretty close to Chicago, and I did too at the time. And it was really providential because they had hired her to do all the music for masses and to sing just during the whole conference. And so that's when I really was introduced to her ministry. And I was very captivated because her voice just like pierced the core of me. And that doesn't happen. I love music and I'm a very sensitive person, but that doesn't happen all the time. And so I think it was the last day, everyone else in the expo center was like, they were packing up and leaving. And I just went by her booth and I wanted to thank her for her work, and I wanted to buy one of her CDs. And we just started talking, and there was just this weird connection. Like we both said, I think we're supposed to like talk again and see each other again. And we didn't really know what that meant. So we exchanged contact information, and she had invited me to come speak to her women's group in Wisconsin last year, I think it was. Well, I was pregnant with our third daughter, Veronica, so I couldn't go because it was really late in my pregnancy. And I'm like, I'm not traveling to Wisconsin in February with iffy weather, and I'm not doing that. So being that pregnant. So we kind of just loosely kept in touch. And then she invited me to come speak in March of this year, and it worked out perfectly. So I stayed with her family for a couple of days. Well, and then I really got to know her better, and we just really connected. And it was interesting because after I did the presentation, she just said, Jeannie, you are such a gifted speaker. And she said, I would really love to hear more of your stories. I could just listen to you talk for hours. And I'm like, really? That's kind of, nobody says that in my home, of course. Right. And so, she was just like, I think it was like maybe a couple hours before I was going to leave. And she just sat down at her piano and she was kind of tinkering around. And we had talked about the St. Michael prayer because I had written kind of a variation of the St. Michael prayer with kind of lyrical, I guess you could say verse or chorus. And she looked at it and she's like, I've always wanted to write a song to the St. Michael prayer. So she's like, do you mind if we just pray and then I can just start kind of seeing where the Holy Spirit leads? I'm like, sure. So she did that. And it was amazing because I got to see her creative process, right, as a musician. And she kind of, toyed with a few different melodies and finally came to one that she said, this is it. This has got to be it. And then I could see she was in the flow and she was like focused and she was like, I'm going to finish it. I'm going to write this song today. And so I went home and she had texted me and she sent me the recording, the rough draft recording on her phone. And I just I had tears in my eyes because I'm like, wow, this is beautiful. And then I had this memory of something that had happened to me when my husband and I were newlyweds, where I really believed that St. Michael had saved my life. I just remembered it. And it was something that was a huge deal, of course. This was 10 years ago. And I couldn't believe I had forgotten it. And I connected it with that song and that prayer. And I told Anna about it. And she's like, oh my goodness. She said, I have all these unwritten or unpublished, unproduced songs that I know I'm supposed to make another album. And she's like, maybe we're supposed to collaborate. So she kept sending me these drafts of these songs. And every song I had another memory of a story that just connected with whatever that song was. So it started with the St. Michael prayer. And then my story is called Saved by an Angel. And then she sent me another one about forgiveness and healing in the family. And I remembered this journey that I had with my relationship with my younger brother, who's a recovering addict and alcoholic. And so that's a beautiful story of healing. And I connected that with her song, Windfall of Grace. And it just kind of naturally progressed to where it looked very clear to us that this was going to be an album. And I'm telling you, Christine, it was from April until October. From the very first conversation we had about it until the actual CD came out, it was only 6 months time when it just unfolded. So to us, it was really evident that God has a plan for this, and we're not sure exactly what He wants to do with it. And it's still fairly new, but to respond to you clearly, to your listeners, Amazing Mercy is a collaborative album of story and song. So Anna sings the songs. These are all professionally recorded. I went to Wisconsin to do the voice recordings of the stories. And so I tell the stories that correspond with her songs. And we also have done it as a live event, and we are booking those for next year around the country. So,
pretty cool.
Yeah. So that's just,
that sounds very unique.
Yeah, it is. It's neat because the feedback we've gotten at least is that, I should send you a CD too. But the feedback that we've gotten from people is that they really feel that it's a powerful, I guess, testimony and it reaches their hearts in such a way that if they just had a CD with songs or they just heard a talk, it's almost like it would be incomplete, but they feel like the message is fuller, richer, deeper, and it reaches them more powerfully because they have both the stories and the songs to accompany them in their own journey. So we call it Amazing Mercy Stories and Songs of Hope because a lot of her music is very healing, and it addresses, I wouldn't necessarily say grief specifically, like you know I'm a grief writer mostly, but there's a lot of about forgiveness and about healing and embracing the divine mercy message and opening our hearts to love after we've been wounded. And so a lot of my stories relate to that. So it's very much Anna's sharing her gifts and I'm sharing mine, and we're combining them in a way that we feel can reach people, different people. Yeah.
Yeah. When talking about music and words going together, I mean, and maybe you do this, but as a writer, whenever I'm writing something, if I hit on the right music, even when to listen to as I'm writing, that completes what I'm writing even more. So I'm sure, like,
yes,
to put those together so that people can actually hear the music that should accompany me. I can't even say it. Go along with.
Yeah. Right.
Can't say that word right now. That at least it does probably become more complete. It's fascinating. Yeah, I'll buy a copy. I think it can. That's worth it. Support this. This is really cool.
Anybody who wants to, you can either hear a sample of it on Anna's website. So AnnaNuzzo.com, ANNANUZZO.com. Okay. She has on her landing page where you can hear samples of each track. And then you can purchase a CD on her website, or you can go on my e-store, which is JeannieEwing.com/store.
Okay.
And so I've got all my books and I've got the CD there too. So listeners can browse and see kind of the work that we do in the ministry that God's kind of developed in our lives.
And I will put those links in the show notes too.
Great.
Awesome. That's really exciting. Now, okay, you have a busy year. So you did these two.
Yes.
In the last 6 months of the year, basically, you did 2 projects. You're about to have a baby. Do you have any other things you're just going to squeeze in real quick before this baby comes, or?
So actually, my husband and I wrote a book called Parenting with the Beatitudes. We had written it about 2 or 3 years ago, and TAN Publishers just picked it up. So they're going to publish it in the spring next year.
How exciting.
That's another project that kind of came to fruition, and everything was very fine-tuned this fall. I also wrote a book of reflections for, there's a cause for this. Her name is Servant of God, Cora Evans. So there's a cause for her canonization. And the nonprofit behind her cause is called the Mystical Humanity of Christ Publishing. Well, I've written for them. They pay me to blog for them. I've done this for 5 years or so. And the executive director of the nonprofit commissioned me to write a book based on Cora Evans' mystical writings. So I completed that, and that's going to be published sometime early next year also. So yeah, it's been a really, really, I would say, fruitful year.
That's amazing.
How I would describe it. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Wow. So you got those things going. Anything else that you know that you're going to be doing in the future, or are you just going to see what unfolds? Because it seems like things are just coming to you.
I know. I think I'm not really sure what God has planned for next year. What I can tell you, Christine, is that I knew once so the Amazing Mercy event that I did with Anna in Milwaukee, which was last month, I knew that was kind of the culmination of the busyness, so to speak. Okay. And I just sensed that God was saying, okay, now I want you to enter into a season of contemplation, quiet, meditation, rest, and prepare, of course, for the baby. And so I know that that's kind of where I am right now. And at the same time, he kind of started all these huge things this year that I know somehow are going to come full circle. I'm thinking, my gut feeling is that probably Anna and I will be traveling next year to do some of these events. You know, maybe just who knows where God's going to take us. But I just have a gut feeling that that's probably going to be the focus, is spreading this message of amazing mercy wherever we're called to go.
Yeah. Actually capitalizing on these projects that have been started.
Yeah. Right.
That's awesome. Well, if you come out to the Philadelphia area,
I would love to.
Yeah. I don't know. We can maybe figure something out. I mean, the Philly Archdiocese could always use more messages like this. But it's funny, St. Michael's prayer, I think in the light of all the church scandal, our priest, I guess like the pastor, I'm not so good with all the terminology yet, but he had printed out hundreds of the St. Michael's prayers and on really nice cardstock, and they're at the end of every pew.
Yes.
And now we end all the Sunday masses at least saying that.
So do we. Absolutely. Yes. So you're right. I mean, it's interesting because when I listened to Amazing Mercy all the way through the first time, I thought, oh my gosh, this was totally God's hand, because I just was thinking in light of all the things going on in the world. So you mentioned the church scandal. That's one of them. There's so much healing that needs to be touching the hearts of the victims of the abuse, and also touching the hearts for conversion of the clergy who was involved. Mm-hmm. So, there's a woundedness in our society. And I feel that this message is intended to reach people's hearts that are broken and bleeding and shattered in pieces, so that they can find God's love again somehow through this message. And so people are kind of like, I don't know how this would work. So I can explain to you, anybody that's interested in hiring Anna and me, like I said, you can go to our website, but it's very easy. We can plug into a specific ministry that's already in your parish. So if there's like a women's group, or there's a retreat that you have every year or something, we can plug into that, and we can work with the coordinator of those things. The event that we did in Milwaukee was grief related specifically. So we tweaked everything to address people who were suffering from a recent loss. And we worked with the coordinator. I think she was like the director of pastoral care on that. We've had requests for people, who do you do like a Marian theme? We can tweak the program for that. We can do like a morning recollection or an evening recollection. There are lots of different ways we can work with a parish or a specific coordinator of a parish ministry to bring Amazing Mercy to your area. So that's how it would work. We would just have that conversation. And
okay. All right. Well, yeah, I'm actually we do Walking with Purpose in our parish. And that's like 110 women or something take part in this just in our church alone, that's huge. So there's a lot of, I'm sure that this would be a gift to all of them.
Sure. Well, Anna and I both have flyers that have information and have, FAQs, testimonials. Mm-hmm. So it's got our bios so people can see our background, where we come from.
That's awesome. How exciting. Why don't we actually enjoy all these things, these fruits of your labor for a little bit? This is really, really exciting that you've done all this.
Yeah, it is. Thank you, Christine. I really appreciate you sharing in that. It means a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to listen to all this. I will definitely order a copy. And listeners, you should too. I will put links to everything that we've talked about in the show notes.
Great.
Make it easy to find. Well, any closing thoughts? Anything you want to say? I always like talking to you. This is fun. I love following you on Instagram and Facebook.
Likewise. I love your following your posts too, because it makes me feel like I was talking about, I don't want people to feel like they're alone. I love how you post real life with small children, because I'm like, yes, this is my life too. It's like a snapshot of my life too. I just want people to know that Anna and I, we want to reach people where they are. We are very honest, authentic people in terms of like, we don't sugarcoat things. We know life is hard. And so we're not uncomfortable with people's pain and with their stories and their journeys. I particularly just feel a call to accompany people. I think that's the word you were trying to say.
Thank you. At least one of us can say it.
And hey, I'm the one with baby brain, so it's like hit or miss. So I just really feel called to accompany people who are in that place of suffering and darkness and loneliness and struggle, no matter what it may be. And if there's anything I can do, people can come to my website and they can send me an email, and I always respond to every email, whether it's a prayer request or someone wants to share their story with me, or whatever the reason that they feel called to contact me. I always respond to everybody personally, because I feel like that's just part of what I'm called to do, to get to know people and their hearts and let them know they're loved.
It's a wonderful gift to share. And it's really special.
It's rare.
Yeah. Because, I mean, how many people shy away from grief? It's wonderful that you're right there, elbows deep in it, helping.
Well, it's kind of like, Christine, when God says, will you do this? Or who will go for us? I think this is in Isaiah. I think, who will go for us? And then Isaiah says, I will, Lord, send me,
Yeah.
And so ever since I was a little girl, so I don't want this to sound pompous. I hope that doesn't sound arrogant, what I just said. But, ever since I was a little girl, I've always been like, Lord, I want to do whatever you ask of me. I want to do great things for you. And so when I know it's something he's asking me to do and I respond with my yes, I know it's going to be hard, but at the same time, I feel a very, very strong sense of purpose in my life. And there's a beauty in that, because there's joy in the midst of suffering and in the midst of my own cross, my own daily cross, right? And so I think that's true for all of us. We all have to just say yes to God and trust him and wherever he's leading us, even though there are going to be moments of difficulty, but at the same time, the fruits of that, the beautiful gifts and the spiritual, just how the opportunities and the things that he opens up for us, it's worth it to change the world in a small way.
There's a prayer that I heard somebody had said, and I'm probably butchering it, but it's basically something like, I'll go where you want me to go. I'll do what you want me to do. I'll love who you want me to love. I've been trying to say that over and over again. That's wonderful that you will do that for yourself. That's great. And actually, it's funny too. I'm trying to read the Bible in a year, and I'm getting close. I think I started in January of this year, and I should be done by February. So it's pretty close to a year, which isn't bad. But I just read that part in Isaiah. I just got into Isaiah and I read that exact part.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, you and Pat are doing beautiful things too for God's kingdom. So thank you for all that you do and for your yes. I mean, it's incredible when you were saying how you're a very new Catholic, to be able to speak to you like this and know that you get it. Like I've been doing this my whole life, and this is fairly new for you. And yet the depth at which you've already reached spiritually is just an amazing gift and an amazing witness that we need in this world. So thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you. It feels like it was almost easy to, it was just this, I don't know. I keep asking God to be the hand to my glove. And I think it's been working. I don't know. Well, thank you so much, Jeannie. Always come back anytime. I always like talking to you.
Yeah, we can do it again some other time.
Well, we're going to have about 6 more projects in the next 6 months anyway.
We'll see. But hey, I can find time. We can put it on the calendar. It's all good. So everybody have a blessed Advent and a Merry Christmas.
Oh, yes. I know. It's been a nice Advent. My first is being a Catholic. It's been wonderful.
Sure. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Just enjoying it. I don't have many activities planned, but that's okay.
That's perfect.
I know that is perfect. Well, thank you everyone for listening. Jeannie, thank you for being on. And I will put everything that Jeannie said in the show notes. I've actually been looking at the CD cover on my website as we were talking, and it looks awesome. So I'll put that on there. And until next time, everyone, thank you for listening. Don't forget to head over to thecatholicmama.com to get your free copy of How to Talk to Your Kids About God. This handy little ebook will teach you how to broach the topic of God with your children, or how to respond to your kids when they want to talk about God, as well as give you answers to 7 of the trickiest questions about the faith that Christian parents face. You'll love the easy to understand grown-up answers, the pared down but not talked down answers you can share with your kids, plus recommended resources you'd like to deepen your understanding of the topic. Get yours free at thecatholicmama.com.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.